Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 98. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday. Steelers Nation full swing into the 2025 NFL Combine. Had the first on-field workouts and drills Thursday. That will run through Sunday, and that will consume the bulk of our conversation for the next couple of episodes. Dave, how you doing?
Happy Friday, Alex. I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, the combine underway and getting a large list of these formal meetings that the Steelers are having at the combine. And then obviously got to sit back yesterday and along with you and track and watch the defensive line groups, the edge groups, and the linebacker groups, and got another exciting group of position groups headed out to the field today in Indianapolis. So going to be some fun times here.
And are you staying safe in any local Starbucks? Apparently it's an issue lately.
Yeah, they'd be lining up to get after me, wouldn't they?
They would.
I wouldn't be able to drink a cup of coffee in peace. That was the fact that that's become the big story there. Before the defense, before that first groups hit the combine field was quite entertaining, and it was fun to listen to Rich Eisen and Daniel Jeremiah have some fun with that a couple of times. And obviously, for people that don't know, Jordan Schultz from Fox apparently took issue with kind of the reporting that Ian Rappaport had in reply to Schultz's report, based on the, I don't know what, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford hookup or something along those lines. And yeah, that's definitely not a good look, but not surprising that at the combine, where almost every notable NFL and local beat writer reporter is, that they're having fun with it.
Yeah, it really took on a life of its own, kind of became almost the top story, which is kind of crazy for not a whole lot happening, just some sort of verbal argument, but fun story at least to break up, not the monotony of the combine, but a little different spin on Combine weekend. We'll talk about that here in just a couple minutes. Dave, let's just start though with...
I would be easy to find at those events. Just look for me at the coffee shop too, because that's I have to stay loaded up on that myself.
Keep your head on a swivel out there,
Yep.
Dave, if you do venture outside. All right, Dave, let's just quickly, before we get into all there is to talk about at Indianapolis, and our crew out there is doing a fantastic job. Jonathan Heitritter, Ross McCorkle, Joe Clark, covering things throughout the weekend at Indy. NFL officially setting the 2025 salary cap yesterday. You can fill in the details. They had parameters about a week ago. This fell basically right in between those parameters, 179 million, or what is it? No, what is it? 279 million, right, Dave, and change?
279.2 million is the new salary cap number. And ever since the report from last week, most of us have been playing with the number falling right between that, which was, I believe, 279.5. So I guess it came in about 300,000 or so underneath that, but about where it was expected to be after the report last week. So 279.2 million is the number based on all of the figures that I keep religiously. This has the team a little under 60 million under the cap right now, and we're still waiting on the official word or numbers on the tender amounts for the restricted tenders, and that of course will influence the base salary of George Pickens in 2024-25 because of the fact that he was the proven performance escalator. But that's really the only thing that will change the actual number once we get that figure in, and also it'll be good to know what the restricted tender amounts officially are. When you're talking about a guy like Jalen Warren, who the Steelers will tender, we just got to find out if it's going to be a right of first refusal or a second round tender. It's not going to impact things like obviously exclusive rights free agents. The Steelers have two of those that we expect to get. You would expect both those guys to get exclusive rights tendered, right? Ryan McCollum and Jeremiah Moon. There's no reason not to do that. Those are just minimum salaries on both those guys. But yeah, almost $60 million in salary cap space. That's a lot of salary cap space to work with. Always like to caution that, there's always this there's what we like to call a effective usable salary cap space based on projected future costs coming down the line later on, like the end of adding the 52nd and 53rd player, the practice squad, whatever the draft pool offset official number ends up being, how much buffer you want the Steelers to have, going or think they will have going into the season, salary cap space. But even that number sits right around, I think, 43.5 million when you talk about effective cap space. So this team, and look, we could have more cuts coming in the next couple of weeks that could potentially free up more salary cap space on top of it. Long story short, this team's going to have plenty of salary cap space to work with between now and the start of the NFL draft, and now we'll just have to sit back and watch how they spend it, going into the early portions of free agency. And another interesting thing will be any day now, like I've talked about, the NFLPA should release the 2024 cash spending report like they do annually this time of year. And once they do that, we'll have a little bit of fun of trying to project exactly how much cash this team will spend this offseason.
Your Christmas for sure when that report comes out. We'll be tracking that and checking back in. And right after the combine, we're going to basically be in free agency mode for the next couple of weeks and not put the draft on hold, but that'll maybe take second tier to free agency. And of course, Pittsburgh deciding on quarterback, still uncertain there. Does a T.J. Watt extension get done sooner or later? I think the local media might be picking up on what we talked about. Dave, I saw Jerry Dulac say it was very possible that T.J. Watt could get a deal even before the start of the new league year. So that thing could be coming a lot earlier than what happened on his last extension, which took until almost the start of week one.
Yeah, as we had talked about, there's no reason not to do it, especially with all the what's going to happen with Myles Garrett? You had two different reports yesterday that he might be interested in staying if they, paid him handsomely. And then I think the same reporter came out, Mary Kay Cabot, later in the day and said, or somebody reported that no matter what the money is, Myles Garrett wants out. So if indeed the Browns were to start getting busy and trying to trade Myles Garrett, and if they ended up trading him, whatever new team would acquire him, you would think they would turn around and make him at least more than likely the highest paid edge rusher in the league. So if that number got started inching up towards that 40 million number, you might want to think about beating Myles Garrett to the altar with a guy like T.J. Watt. Obviously I can't guarantee when this is going to take place with him, but I think we come out of what Omar Khan said the other day, which wasn't surprising, that they'd like to get Watt signed to an extension this offseason. Both sides seem more than willing to get that done. And with the cash and the cap situation this team is in right now, there's no reason to think that they can't get it done right now. I would imagine the sticking points would be APY and guaranteed money amounts, and that would be it. So not surprising to hear Dulac say that potentially we could see a TJ Watt deal done right at the start of the new league year, less than 2 weeks from now.
And I know it's uncommon for Pittsburgh to do these massive deals this early in the offseason. Antonio Brown had gotten one of his extensions in April, didn't he? years back. I know that was under the Colbert regime, but there is some precedent for non-quarterbacks getting paid early.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if that was the move the money up one or not. I'd have to go back and look at the date on that. But generally in the past, we've been talking about this team with a franchise quarterback where, they'd had to kind of maneuver around that. But in this instance, when you've got this much cap space and you know pretty much what you're looking at when it comes to a guy like T.J. Watt, and there's no other than the two sides having trouble coming to terms, there's really no reason not to get it done this or early in the offseason.
And you've gotten past the biggest hurdle last time with that second and third year guarantee precedent. I'm just trusting Wikipedia here, just reading it off. On February 27th, 2017, Brown signed a new 5-year contract with the Steelers, 4-year extension worth $68 million, making Brown the highest paid receiver in the NFL. So could be very, very similar playing out to TJ Watt.
Right. Will be interesting to see. I was starting to play around some numbers with Chris Boswell. Obviously, he still has 2 years left on his deal right now, and it's very uncommon for the Steelers to sign sign a player to an extension who has more than 1 year left on his contract. But right now, when you look at cash payment for what Boswell's scheduled to earn, which I believe is $3.12 million, and you look at the job that he's done, and you look at some of these kickers around the NFL, you might. It's not going to cost a lot of money to do it, but it would, and this is something that could obviously leak later into the offseason to make sure that you just get him healthy through all the offseason and all like that. But I don't know if they're going to push some money forward from 2020 from 2026. At the very least, I think if you did not do an extension with Chris Boswell, you at least have to compensate and give him more money, I think, in 2025, because his cash earning is set to be $3.12 million. When you look at his APY, right now it's just $5 million, which puts him way down on the kicker list right now. So either you pull money forward from 2026, and I think the most that you could do with that is around $1.8 million, because you still have to have his minimum salary in 2026 at least equal what the minimum on the CBA is right now there. So do you pull some of that money forward and throw in another $1 million on top of it, and let's say give Chris Boswell, I don't know, $6.5 million in cash, so he becomes the highest cash earning kicker in 2025. I think that is a distinct possibility, but once again, it's probably not a huge priority to get that done early in the off season. That could probably be done closer that you get to the start of the regular season, but I think that's something to consider when it comes to players and more money in 2025.
Agreed. Well said. And I do think that's more likely where they're going to push the money forward, because I don't think Pittsburgh wants to break that precedent of doing a deal 2 years out on a kicker, even for one as good as Boswell. If they ever break that precedent, it's probably going to come at a more demanding position of receiver, some sort of top tier elite guy in the future, where they just have to do it right now, and they have to kind of fall on that sword. I mean, as good as Boz is, I don't think that's where they're going to make the exception.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of the cash payments some of these kickers are set to earn. Now, look, APY is different than cash, but you got a guy like, let's see, what was I looking at here? Grand Gano's set to earn 4.4 million in cash in 2025. Justin Tucker is set to earn, we'll see if he stays, $4.2 million in cash. Harrison Bucker, who is the highest technically paid kicker in the NFL right now, is scheduled to get $3.8 million, in a little more than $3.8 million. Who was the other one I was looking at? Was it Cameron Dicker, $4.75 million in cash in 2025? Who's another one up in here? Evan McPherson is set to earn $5 million. He might be the high watermark that you might have to clear when it comes to cash earnings. So once again, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to have to figure out, what you need to increase him. At the very minimum, he might not technically be the highest paid kicker when it comes to APY, but I think it would be wise and the right thing to do if you don't do an extension with Chris Boswell this offseason to at least make him the highest cash earning kicker in 2025, if all that makes sense.
Sure, it does. And it's easier to kind of pull some of that cash forward and make it work with a kicker on a lower salary than it would say for a receiver where, that guy might not want to, might not be super happy with a $2-3 million extra amount of salary when he's looking for $35 million per year on a huge money extension. So point is probably workable to do it with Boswell as any player in that scenario.
Right. And as far as the rest of the cash and the cap goes, like we just said and have been saying for a while, this team, just how aggressive they want to get in the cash spending really is all the thing, the only obstacle, because they should not have to do any restructures. And once again, we'll see if they cut any guys here in the next couple of weeks and free up a little bit more cash and cap that way.
I know we're both eager to talk combine, but I want to just put a bow on one other subject before we dedicate, I think, the rest of the show to the NFL Combine. Matthew Stafford, the rumors still about him as of this recording, Friday, just after noon p.m. Eastern time. The momentum seems to be swinging towards Stafford staying in Los Angeles. To your point, as you predicted earlier this week, that made the most amount of sense. Nothing is done, but that seems to be the more likely scenario. If he were to be traded, the Raiders and Giants are reportedly front runners for a deal. Pittsburgh not out of the running. Adam Schefter saying he could see it happening, although Schefter ultimately believes Russell Wilson will return to Pittsburgh. So again, I would just say the momentum, the talk about Stafford and Pittsburgh has really cooled off throughout this week.
Yeah, that's obviously not surprising to me at the very least. It makes the most sense for those two sides to work something out here. And I saw something yesterday that I retweeted from a guy that a cap specialist that doesn't tweet much at all. I'm trying to find it in my timeline where I retweeted it about what makes the most sense. But in essence, what the tweet was about was pushing money forward from 2026 for Matthew Stafford, and at least make his cash earnings that much more in line. So I would not be surprised if something happened along those lines when it comes to him. And I can't find the tweet here, but I will interrupt us if I do.
Yeah, well, they did that last year with Stafford. That was their solution. So I wonder if Stafford would want to do that again. I think he wants an actual extension, but maybe there is some sort of middle ground they can reach again.
All right, here it is from J.I. Halsell, and you can follow him on Twitter at SalaryCap101. If Rams, Stafford's intent is to be paid more closely to the tier 1 quarterback market, which is $50 million plus, then a simple solution is to move $20 million of his 2026 salary into 2025, making Stafford's 25 cash be $52 million, which is existing $32 million plus $20 million moved from 2026. Then in 2026, you revisit the conversation when Stafford's currently due only $11 million. So I have followed J.I. Halsell. In fact, I think he's one of the original ones that I was following and talking about way back when Antonio Brown's cash got pushed forward when that happened, and I believe Halsell was pretty damn close to some of the numbers there. So a respected guy in the industry. Not saying that this is what happens with Stafford, but it does make the most sense. As does it make sense for Stafford to stay in L.A.?
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to for me. When I talked about him getting moved and still a possibility, I should have just fallen back on the tried and true Chewbacca defense. It does not make
Right.
sense for Matthew Stafford and the Rams to part ways, and it kind of feels a little Ayuk 2.0 where they realize they're better together than trying to rip this thing apart. So we'll see. And again, even if Stafford is dealt, Pittsburgh does not appear to be favorites for him to be his next destination.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it is best to look at some of these things using the Chewbacca defense. What about tell the folks about Trey Smith? We just talked about him just the other day.
Yeah, we should, since we spent a lot of time talking about that Brian Baldinger kind of report, little vague speculation that Pittsburgh could be looking to make a splash along the offensive line in free agency. The Chiefs are franchise tagging Trey Smith, which kind of was a little out of left field. There was a lot of belief that they would not do that, but he is going to get the tag, and so he'll be a Chief in 2025.
Yeah, you don't let good players leave if you can help it. And I think we'll see what happens with T. Higgins. Obviously, there's not going to probably be that many. There never is that many franchise tags used. What about 6, 7, 8, I guess, or so an off season. But as soon as the cap number was kind of was set in stone, I think you're going to start seeing more of these reports surface, because obviously you got the tag deadline coming up here within the next couple of weeks as well too. So I'm not shocked that Trey Smith got the tag there.
I know they still want to try to work out a long-term deal, and the tag obviously gives them more time to accomplish that. All right, Dave, let's get into the 2025 NFL Combine. As you said, the front seven working out, testing yesterday. The defensive linemen, the edge rushers, and the off-ball linebackers. Our main attention was to that great defensive line group, and although several names did not fully participate, including Kenneth Grant, who had a hamstring injury discovered during his medical checks the day before. He still had plenty of talent that is worth talking about. Derrick Harmon from Oregon, especially, but also several other names, and some names that I hadn't thought about and researched as much popped on my radar. It's one part of the combine for me that's helpful to get additional exposure to the entire sort of draft field, the bulk of it, at least. Guys like Joshua Farmer, somebody that I want to certainly dig into. So, Dave, your impressions initially, really, of the D-line group from the combine?
First and foremost, I'm disappointed that Kenneth Grant was unable to run.
Me too.
I really wanted to see him go through, whatever paces he was going to go through, might have gone through in that. Second, I don't know how you can have this conversation that we're having today without talking about Derrick Harmon, a guy that we've talked about quite a bit already. He was not obviously one of the first guys that I dived into, but you did. And even so, we agreed that this is a guy that's going to likely be high on the Steelers' radar. Coming out of, obviously had a, not surprising, the Steelers, when it comes to this group as a whole, have been very active with the formal combine interviews. We got a long list of guys that they formally have met with from the defensive line group. Harmon, one of them. I thought his podium interview was absolutely fantastic. We've got a lot of that documented on SteelersDepot.com, and I was glad to. Let's talk about his measurements, Alex. 6'04" and a half, 313 pounds, 34 3/8 inch arms, 10 3/8 inch hands, a wingspan of 83 3/4 inch. That alone, more than qualifies him. Obviously, when you talk about Steelers defensive linemen, guys that can, move, get out, be a little bit more on the edge, more Cameron Hayward like. You like those guys as close to 6'5" or greater as possible. I think 6'4", 6'4.5" is close enough. 313, perfect weight for him, and those long arms of 34 3/8, and that the hand size more than qualifies him. And then you get to what he did in the running phase, and he went out and ran, I think, an official 4.95 40. That will do. That will do. The 10-yard split, 1.74. That will do. I don't think he did anything else. I think we'll see him do that at his pro day there. And then I watched yesterday several of the drills that he did. Looked fine and all like that. Was very impressed with the kind of the bending ability and of the hoop drill. You can easily find that on Twitter or replay through the combine. Thought he was impressive in that. And then the other aspect is he did a short interview with Stacey Dales there, and I thought he represented himself real well there. So if you're building a short list, and I know there's been some talk with about him saying, is he a first rounder? Is he borderline first rounder? I think he's a first rounder. And if you're going to talk about building a short list of defensive linemen that could be the Steelers pick at 21st overall, not going to get any pushback from you on this, but Derrick Harmon's got to be on that list.
Absolutely. I don't want to pretend, and you're not saying this, but he didn't crush the combine. He tested well. He did everything well. I didn't expect him to go out there and, have the craziest numbers in the world. His tape didn't necessarily indicate that, but he did everything he needed to do at Indy. Good workout, good in position drills, as you said, seemingly doing a great job where he probably crushed it was the interview process. I know there was even a passing comment made by Daniel Jeremiah during the broadcast that Harmon was one of the best interviews with teams, and he had a formal interview with Pittsburgh, and I'm sure came off very well to the Steelers. And so, again, Jeremiah had him as his number 26 player on his board. To me, that totally justifies using a 21st overall pick on him. So, a really good day overall for Derrick Harmon. Really confirmed what we've talked about for quite some time.
And I have dug deeper in his tape since even we just last talked on Wednesday there. And I think one of the things that really stuck out, in addition to all the things that you wrote up in the studies that you've done on him, the balance is fantastic with him. Especially when he's double teamed, he does a good job of anchoring, staying balanced. Remember, one of the things we talked about Keanu Benton when he came out a couple of years ago was how is that balance with him? And I think there have been some minor issues with Benton with the able to kind of drop anchor on a defensive side and hold ground and stay on balance. I think Benton has done better than what maybe the initial tape was, but there still were those concerns. I think about him coming into that year's draft with Harmon. A very, very good job of balance and being able to keep his footing. And even in the few times that you do see him get pushed a little bit, the ability for him to fight off of that and finding the ball carrier is something really, really good that he does as well. And as you've noted in your breakdowns with him, does a good job with the arm usage, and you can see those heavy hands and the fighting that he does and all like that. Long story short, coming, just out of this defensive group and what we've learned about him since being at the combine so far, once again, it's hard not to build a short list of defensive line players that you think could be the 21st overall pick by the Steelers and not have Derrick Harmon. In fact, it's hard not to have him kind of as the leader in the clubhouse right now, if you ask me.
He's up there. There's going to be some, I think, ongoing debate about will they look at more nose tackle, more defensive end, replace more Larry Ogunjobi, or kick Keanu Benton outside if they went the nose tackle route. Harmon has played it. He's played all over the line at Oregon, at Michigan State, but he's more of that 4-eye, 3-tech, I think, than he's going to be that shade 0-tech nose tackle, and that's where Grant could come in. But, Harmon arguably is going to play more snaps than a Kenneth Grant, who I think could have a sub-package role. He's a great athlete. If he ran yesterday, would have been a sub-5-second kind of a guy, but it's probably an easier way to get 700, 800 snaps out of a Derrick Harmon than there probably would be for Kenneth Grant. Something also to consider when you're talking about that first round face of the franchise investment. But certainly Harmon did a good job. Not the only one is his college teammate. I thought had a good workout. A little more interior plugger. Jamari Caldwell, 6'0", 332, decent length, 32-inch arms to be that nose tackle. Went through the workouts, did a nice job. So talk about some nose tackle options as well. Him, Tyleik Williams did not run the 40. He went through positional work. I thought he looked good. He's got a good combination of strength and athleticism. Not going to be a high-end, super toolsy pass rusher, but there's going to be something there. He can work in sub packages. And so, again, plenty of options here in this deep D-line class.
What about the the tape board out was one of the early guys I talked about as far as the athleticism. Ty Robinson out of Nebraska.
Yeah, he ran really well. What did he? 4.83 was that his official
Right.
40 and a 1.7-1.10 split. Now I think in drills you saw that lower body tightness, little stiffness in the hips and ankles, and so I wonder is he a little linear of an athlete? But certainly I think he tested well, he jumped well, had a good workout. A little bit lighter, the length isn't ideal, and that's kind of the thing. Again, Pittsburgh, when they've sacrificed anything, it's been sacrificing some length for in keeping height. So that really does still keep, I think, Robinson on the radar. Kind of that Logan Lee type of build. I think Robinson and Lee built in a similar fashion. So I have some questions there. I do need to dig into his tape. You've watched more of him than I have, but I would say a good day for Ty Robinson.
Yeah, but I do think that you see those the kind of length, especially in the arms, kind of show up on the tape. He tends to get stuck on guys on the defensive line there. Look, in no way, shape, or form my suggestion that he's a first round guy. Sure. He's not. But if you got later into this thing, third or fourth round, especially, I mean, because this class is here's a takeaway. This class, once again, this class is loaded with kind of planet theory type guys that we just, for the last several years haven't gotten the opportunity to look at a large swath of these guys that kind of fit the criteria that the Steelers look for. And there's just some massive planet theory type guys when it comes to defensive linemen in this class, guys that move well on top of it, guys that can move up and down the defensive line as well too. So I mean, this is and it's been advertised that as a while, a very, very good defensive line class. But if you're talking about a guy like Phillips, if you're going to take he would not or Robinson, I should say, when it comes to Robinson, he would not obviously be the lone defensive lineman that I take in this class. But if
he's a double dip, right?
Right. He's a double dip guy aspect if you decided to go that way with him. But he definitely helped himself at least when it comes to on the field stuff with what he ran. He did a lot of the work as well too, didn't he? He jumped and he did long jump and broad jump and ran the 3-cone, ran the short shuttle, and those kind of guys know that they're going to help themselves. They're going to knock those things out. And I think he's got everything knocked out now where he doesn't have to worry about anything at his pro day.
Right. Can just go through drills. They just posted the bench numbers for the D tackle class, and Robinson participated. Want to take a guess how many reps at 225 he did?
He's a pretty, he's got a pretty stout build to him, and probably those shorter arms helped him a little bit. I'll say 31.
Close, 28. 28,
okay.
But that was one of the top numbers. Jordan Phillips, number 1 with 29. Robinson tied for second. Not a lot of guys did it, but the handful that did, he was tied for second with Darius Alexander from Toledo, we'll talk about, and Eric Gregory from Arkansas. And so arm length certainly can correlate towards how easy it is to bench. Guys with longer arms typically aren't expected to bench as much. Robinson's shorter-ish arms help there, but I think he's got good play strength, and that matches up with a bench press.
I would agree. Darius Alexander was as advertised in the workout yesterday.
Yeah, he was. I was curious what he was going to run. Not that the 40 matters so much, the 10 split matters more, but just as a general gauge of athleticism, he didn't stand out as some sort of great athlete on tape, but he ran better than I thought. I thought he'd be like a 5'1" kind of guy. His official 40, a 4.95 with a 1.72 10 split. And so, it's good athleticism. The concern will be the age. I thought it was interesting on the broadcast, though. I think it was Charles Davis and Daniel Jeremiah making mention of this because Alexander will turn 25 in August, which is pretty old for a rookie. Right. Teams seem to be less concerned, at least based on the conversations that Davis and Jeremiah had with NFL teams. They're just focusing on, let's just get a good player now. We'll deal with the rest later, but let's just get talent and worry about that. And maybe that's because of the COVID years that have had guys stay in school longer. So now it's more common for guys who are 24, 25 years old to be in the draft because of NIL and guys staying. It becomes you get an older draft class in general. Maybe teams are just more desensitized to having an older prospect. I still think it's going to be a concern that maybe will hurt us draft stock a bit, but overall a good day for Darius Alexander.
And then you look at a guy like Derrick Harmon. How old is he? I mean, he's an underclassman too. So that's another. And what was it? Wasn't he a captain too?
Trying to check my article here. He might have been. I don't know if he was because he just was a one-year guy at Oregon, and so I don't know if he got captaincy that quickly. I'll try to check here. I don't know if we have the official age on him either. I'll try to pull that up. I don't think that's public, at least easily accessible for Harmon's age. As for his captaincy, I'm not seeing anything, but I could be missing something. I mean, he wasn't the guy at Michigan State and then just that 1 year at Oregon, so maybe he just didn't get to that captain status, but it could be out there and I might be missing it.
I mean, I thought he was great in the interview, and I know that we already hit on that, but anyway, there's a lot to like about Derrick. Did Derrick Harmon bench?
Does not appear based on the listing on NFL.com. No, only maybe 10 guys benched. Mason Graham at 24 reps. That was the one thing Graham did this weekend. Did not test, did not go through positional drills. A little disappointing for Graham because he has those shorter arms. Kenneth Grant had 22 reps, but he does have some longer arms, so there's a little bit more of a quote-unquote excuse for Kenneth Grant.
Darius Alexander, probably not a first-round guy, though, right?
No, I wouldn't say first round. I think the consensus, or maybe the overall view, is second round for him. I do wonder if the age will bump him down into the third round, especially given the depth and overall strength in this D-line class. I had a third round grade on Alexander, so we'll see. But I think he'll be a day 2 guy.
All right. Walter Nolan measured in at 6'3", 3/4, 296. 32.5-inch arms with him, 9.5-inch hands. Did not do anything on the field. There's been, and I don't know, this is an aspect that's very, very tough to talk about when it comes to our side of the fence and evaluating these guys. Supposedly there's a report or reports floating around maybe about some minor character concerns with him.
Yeah, it's something I was investigating actually last night because I caught wind of that too. And like you said, it's always tricky to talk about and without. I hate when those character things get thrown around without specifics. If you're going to make that accusation, I think somebody should be able to back it up with, okay, what is the character concern? I can't find anything clear that shows or indicates that. And we, in our profiles, I always make it a point to our guys to really get to know the person because we talk about so much you're drafting an athlete or you're drafting a D tackle, you're drafting a person, and that's going to matter as much as the player himself. What kind of person are you bringing into your building? And based on their makeup will really dictate how close they get to their ceiling or not. And so we really go deep dives into learning about the person as much as possible. There was some sort of recruiting scandal whenever Nolan took a visit to Tennessee. They got reported out. He was not specifically named, but the tea leaves pointed to him. His family denied it. It was NIL, getting some money type stuff that NFL teams probably don't care about and probably no one cares about in this world of NIL and millions of dollars being thrown around. He did go to like 3 or 4 high schools, and so he moved around a lot, but I think some of that was COVID related. I don't know if that's really a red flag. So I couldn't find anything that was an obvious red flag, but I did see their report. I just take those things with a grain of salt when they don't back it up with additional information.
What do you think about the 32.5-inch arms on Nolan?
I just think the overall profile is not fitting of a Steelers defensive end to be under 6'4", 296, 32.5-inch arms. I think one thing alone is not necessarily disqualifying, but the combination. And although he did not work out, we saw him in that one interview. He looked a little bit smaller. He compared himself to Aaron Donald. And unless he becomes Aaron Donald, that's a little more 3-tech, a little more. Again, I know lines between 4-3 and 3-4 have blurred so much, but I just didn't get the feeling of this is a prototypical Steelers defensive end. I don't think he's a nose tackle. I think he's going to be, playing out more towards over guard, over tackle. And I just don't think Pittsburgh's, at least based on that alone, being the right fit.
He feels more and more like a 4-3 defensive tackle to me.
Yeah, I think he's a gap shooter. And Pittsburgh does that, but sometimes they got a 2-gap too and free those linebackers up. And I just doesn't strike me Nolan's that guy.
I think the original, when I talked to him, the tape is very, very good on him, obviously, but I called him a top 50 pick early on. I think he is a top 50 pick. I still think he will go in the top 50, but I'm less in the ballpark of him being a Steeler, especially at 21. I don't think that's. I'm tending not to think that's not going to happen. He feels like a second round 4-3 defensive tackle for a team.
I think there's been first round buzz. I think he's in the first round of a lot of these big draft nicks mock drafts. But you know, would you take him over Derrick Harmon?
No.
Yeah, I'm struggling with making that case right now. He does feel a little, to use a modern veteran name, a Milton Williams, who Pittsburgh did have interest in coming out, but a little bit more in that mold than a Cam Hayward type.
All right. Who else from the defensive line class?
Let me go through my notes here. Who else do I have then? I thought Cam Horsley, he didn't run, but I thought he moved well in the drills, a big lower body. He's a real kind of old school interior plugger. The sack production, the pass rush, the sub package value is not going to be there. He's going to be a late day 3, potentially undrafted guy, but he really engulfs blockers and takes away interior run game. Thought Alfred Collins from Texas didn't run, but he went through the workouts. I mean, he's got a great build at 6'0", 332, 34 and 5/8 inch arms, 85-inch wingspan. And so that's a guy that hasn't been talked about a lot. That could be a day 2 possibility for the NFL. His teammate Vernon Broughton, the later round guy, he did not run either. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys are skipping even the 40s, and some of them are doing the positional drills, which has certainly some value to it. But you'd like to see these guys participate a little bit more. T.J. Sanders, South Carolina, somebody maybe we'll talk about more. Almost 6'4", 297, over 33-inch arms. One other name to mention there.
Let's see. Who was the other guy that had a lot of buzz coming into this?
I think of Deion Walker's workout. He didn't run. He jumped. Looked, he's an awkward body type in a sense. He's very tall, 6'07", 3, not going to be as super fluid. Again, I really wish, and I know because of the hamstring, I'm not criticizing Grant. I wish Grant would have worked out to see those two guys kind of work side by side in a sense and see which one moved better. I'm guessing Grant would have looked a whole lot better in drills.
Yeah, the tape with him with those top, with those first 3 that I dug into the tape on, I believe I said he was the less impressive, real inconsistent, stands up quite a bit, not a every play type of guy. He does flash, but I got. Now look, he's going to get drafted way earlier than a Daniel McCullers did, but you kind of got the Daniel McCullers vibes from him though.
Yeah. I mean, I get that standpoint, just kind of this impossibly huge guy in the middle. I think there are certainly some differences in their game, and Walker, his flashes, his overall athletic profile is better than McCullers. But I get the overall point there. Like I said earlier on Farmer from Florida State, Josh Farmer, that's a guy that I didn't have and still don't have a ton of knowledge on, but I liked his workout, 35-inch arms, a little bit on the shorter side for Pittsburgh. Tested okay. I thought he had a good, solid, clean workout overall.
All right. As far as guys on this list is the defensive tackle types, Alex, and obviously I got to learn still a lot more about several of these guys, but of the guys that seem like they could be in a running for 21 that are not nose tackle only, it feels like there's 3 of them, but one of them's more than almost certainly to be off the board, and that's Kenneth Grant, right? I mean, Kenneth Grant's still a top 15 easy guy, right? When it comes to him, and he didn't do anything yesterday, but it feels like Mason Graham and Derrick Harmon are the 2 guys so far that feel like they could be defensive linemen for the Steelers at 21.
Well, I think Graham's stock is generally still viewed as higher than Kenneth Grant. So I think if you ask me right now which Michigan D lineman has a better chance to be there at 21, I would say Grant over Graham. But we'll have to see, Graham as he goes through the testing, because he's been viewed, Graham has been as like the top defensive lineman who could be a top 7, top 8, top 10 kind of a guy. So I think, Grant, Harmon, not going to discount Nolan, not going to do that right now. Those are kind of the first round guys to look at.
Right.
Anybody else? Any other sleepers? There was that guy from Tennessee. Let me get his name. Make sure I get that right.
Elijah Simmons.
No, Omar Norman Lott, who's not going to be a
Oh,
great fit for Pittsburgh, but just really good athleticism, smooth. Thought he had a good workout. Again, he didn't run either. So we'll do that at his pro day. Good length, but lack of size. Not ideal fit for Pittsburgh.
all right. My main takeaway, as I said at the top there when we started talking about here, is it's hard not to think that Derrick Harmon could be the leader in the clubhouses when it comes to guys that could potentially be on the board that fit what the Steelers look for, specifically with defensive linemen. If you're talking about 21.
Right. As you said, short list, that's where Harmon should be. What are your thoughts? Have you gotten to watch Alexander from Toledo, Darius Alexander? Have you gotten a
Yeah,
good feel of his tape? You like his tape?
yeah, I like his tape. He's explosive, good quick first step, good quick first moves, able to find the ball. I just kind of wonder if he's first round material.
Yeah, I don't think first round, but if they went another position in round one, is that a day two option? I think it would be in consideration.
I
You
kind
just
of wonder
wouldn't
if he would circle back around to you though, with this class. He could.
at 52
Yeah.
in the second round. Yeah, I think there's a chance. A good chance he'll be there at 52 as we kind of sit here today.
Okay.
But I wonder, the production wasn't great at Toledo. He kind of came on strong a little bit later in his career, but also saw a lot of attention because he was the guy for that Toledo defense. And so you have to kind of understand that aspect. And there were some other non-sack things. He had that pick six in the Pitt game that really turned that game around, got Toledo back into it, always making an impact that way. But you do wonder, a little bit older, not a hyper athlete, without great production, without combination, hurt him compared to others. Factoring in quote unquote little smaller school competition, not SEC level. I wonder if that combination of factors will push Alexander down a bit more than some people think right now.
Okay. He's
Right.
he's he he's I mean, you can make a lot of arguments that he's a top 50 guy.
Yeah, and I like Alexander, to be clear. My comp for him was Jerron Reed. He was with Green Bay, so I think there's certainly some staying power with Alexander. But I just wonder, in a deep class, will he lose out in a couple of those areas that will cause him to drop a little bit below projection and expectation?
All right.
All right, let's go to edge rushers, and not going to be it's a good group overall for Pittsburgh. There's not going to be a ton of discussion to be had there because they're pretty much set. Could they add a day three rusher for a number four spot? Absolutely, but not going to be something in consideration early. Obviously, Shamar Stewart was really the talk of the combine. 6'5", 267, ran a 4.59, sub 1.610 split, 40-inch vertical, 10.11 broad. I think what was the stat the broadcast had? One of four players, 260 pounds plus defensive lineman to jump 40 plus inches, joining, I think it was Myles Garrett, Mario Williams, and one other name that's eluding me right now. So that's going to be a first round guy. There's questions over lack of production, but I think teams will look past that and bet on traits and the overall potential of Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about him landing with the Steelers because of where his draft stock is. And I think the main thing about him is why, the production versus the measurables.
Right. I forget the exact lack of production, but his numbers didn't pop. But that happened with Trayvon Walker from Jacksonville, the first overall pick at Georgia. He's playing in that deep Bulldogs defensive line that rotated and not one guy dominated in terms of stuffing the stat sheet. So we've seen those guys that didn't have great college production, that were just really good players, go really, really high in the draft before.
I tell you, I did not know anything about that Ahmad Hassanin, or I don't know how you pronounce his last name, out of Boise State, but he was an entertaining guy to watch during the combine. Hasn't played, I don't think, football. What was he what sport was he playing over there overseas?
Yeah, he was born in Egypt, would be the first
Cross
Egyptian NFL player. I forget.
CrossFit guy or something like that, wasn't he?
Something like that, yeah. I think he started playing in 2019 when he came over to the States, and so pretty new to the game, but yeah, intense. There was that clip of him and Chuck Clark. They were
Right.
kind of hyping each other up, and so fun tape. I'm sure teams will love him.
Yeah, I the more I watched him, I thought, oh, he's going to end up with the Baltimore Ravens.
Does feel like it.
Obviously Abdul Carter going to be interesting to see what happens with him with the stress
Fracture, yeah, in his foot.
fracture and all like that. But obviously you don't have to worry about him when it comes to being the Steelers. But I mean, look, I think overall the takeaway is with this edge class is it's that Landon Jackson. He screams potential Steeler as well too. But he's going to probably be a where do you think he's going to go? Second, third round, somewhere like that.
Could be a first round guy. Could be a late
Really?
first is kind of my thought. Yeah, he had to crush the Senior Bowl. He had a good workout. I do worry. He's got skinny ankles. There's that tightness around the edge. He's explosive. He's great in a line. He did have a good Senior Bowl week. I just wonder, will he consistently be able to bend the edge? He's a little awkward body, a little bit tall. Can guys leverage him? But I mean, I don't know exactly where he'll be. I think we'll be in that top 50 conversation at worst. I just wonder, will it translate perfectly to the NFL for being a kind of a tighter hipped, skinnier ankle pass rusher?
All right. Who else of this edge list maybe potentially day 3? Because let's face it, the Steelers are set at edge other than needing some depth and a guy that can play on special teams.
I want to dig into Antoine Powell Ryland from Virginia Tech more. The production was great last year, 16 sacks. He ran, I think, decently. He jumped pretty well, didn't go through the cone drills as most guys did not. Could that be a round 4 type of a guy? I'm not entirely sure where his stock sits right now. Joyner from Minnesota. I just finished the tape on him. He's a no-nonsense power rusher, rip through contact kind of a guy. Didn't see the explosiveness or the twitch you look for a high-end pass rusher, but rotational guy, kind of strong side defensive end. Could play on his feet as well, but mostly with his hand down at Minnesota. I'm still kind of trying to circle back to the edge class here
Me
because I
too.
was so focused on D-line and receiver and some of those more priority positions for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'll get deeper into the edge class later on in this process because it not being such a high priority for the Steelers.
All right, let's go to the off-ball linebackers. And that also wouldn't be classified as high priority for Pittsburgh, but maybe a better chance there, especially if Landon Roberts does not re-sign. A good group overall. Jahad Campbell from Alabama, obviously, I think the talk of the town from that group, 6'0", 235, ran a 4.52 official, 40.153, 10 split, but some other quality names in this year's class.
Yeah, it's a decent class, I think, overall. Another group that I haven't paid a ton of attention to because if the Steelers address it, I would think it would be potentially day 3, a guy that can help on special teams. A lot of buzz about that Carson, I think, Swessinger out of UCLA.
Yeah, he jumped really well, 39.5 inches. He didn't run. He benched 20. I think he might have had a hamstring issue. There was something, I believe, maybe minor injury, Nick, that caused him to not fully participate, but getting some buzz.
Was
Danny
he the
Struts,
walk-on?
not sure. I will have to check that. That's almost, I think they mentioned it on the broadcast. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that was him.
Yeah, he had to cut his teeth on special teams, and the coaches didn't want to take him off of special teams because he did so well on there. That's ringing a bell to me right now.
All right. Carson Bruner certainly helped himself.
Yeah, good workout for Bruner, and I'm sure his dad helped him prepare for this process. But to run 4.58, the jumps were just okay, but I thought he looked pretty good in drills.
He might not be on the board day 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I can see where Mock Draftable has his stock. I don't think it's terribly high right now. I think he's considered a day 3 guy. That the website can sometimes have a lag between, if any guy's stock is
Right.
rising. I'll try to see what they have. They have undrafted free agent right now. So, yeah, I think it could be a day 3 guy.
The Steelers wouldn't let that happen.
One of those 2 7th-round picks they had, they could use for sure.
Yeah.
One guy I just started watching last night because he had a good workout, Teddy Buchanan from California, and I think he's got really good tape. He's active, he's high impact, great sideline-to-sideline chase, solid open field tackler, effective blitzer. Only 1 year at Cal. He played at UC Davis the first 3 years, had a great career there, and then graduated and then transferred up to Cal to run 4.6 at 233 pounds, 40-inch vertical, 10.5 in the broad. It's really good tape, high character, was a captain at UC Davis. really made an immediate impact on that Golden Bears defense, led the team in tackles this year. Just every tape that I put on, he was always around the ball, always making plays. I think some things to work on, little high cut, little leggy, using his hands better, block deconstruction, a little better in eye discipline and zone awareness and coverage. But the tools are there, the tape is there, the production is there. I like Teddy Buchanan.
All right, if I was to only have time to throw on one game tape from Buchanan, what should I throw on?
I mean, they're all pretty impressive. Let me go through my notes here. What was the real impact game that he had? You might hear my papers crinkling a little bit. Would it be the Auburn game, right at the start of the season? That Auburn game was the forced fumble he had kind of coming in, the running back sort of wrapped up and just ripping the football out. Really, really impressive, impactful play.
All right.
One guy I was looking at, I was hoping he would run better because he's had a really good college career. I just didn't think he had the athleticism, and the lack of size was going to hurt him. Jay Higgins from Iowa, who was a tackling machine. He's instinctual, and I get that. We've always been burned by really fast off-ball linebackers before. The Devin Bushes, at least I was burned. You caught that one before I did in terms of the concerns about him. But that whole class of Devin Bush and Devin White, you don't have to be a 4.4 guy to be a good linebacker. But for Jay Higgins to be 224 pounds, to run 4.83, I think he's going to be a great special teams guy. I struggle to see anything above that for the NFL level.
All right. There was talk about who was it that one of the lighter guys in here was it Nick Martin?
In reference to what? In terms of talk?
Just might be just a no nonsense tackling machine special teamer. It was one of, damn it, Shermar James. Maybe it was Paul. Yeah, maybe it was Paul. Yeah.
From Ole Miss, one of those.
Yeah, it was him.
Ole Miss guys. Yeah, his name's Chris Paul Jr. He's going by Pooh Paul. It's his nickname. I assume people stop asking him if he's related to Chris Paul, the basketball player. I mean, he ran decently, 4.63. He's lighter, 222 pounds. And see what that guy to run fast. Thought it was, good overall, good, not great for Chris Paul.
All right, I got a lot to learn about the inside off the ball linebacker group still.
Yeah, me as well. And even, who was it? Eugene Asante from Auburn. I really know nothing about this guy, admittedly, but to run 4.48, he had I think the fastest 40 of that off-ball group, and no one really talked about it. So that's a guy I want to dig into a little bit more. Again, undersized. You want him to run fast, but to run sub 4.5, again, the only guy from that off-ball crop to do so. Makes you want to check that guy out.
All right.
All right, Dave. So today we have, in a little bit, by the time I'm sure people are listening to this, we have the tight ends and defensive backs.
Right.
What a weird mix of position groups to work out today. So Pittsburgh, they show interest in tight ends. They reportedly had a formal interview with Penn State's Tyler Warren. Now teams get 45 of them. I wouldn't make too much out of it, but what is your interpretation of Pittsburgh having a formal conversation with Tyler Warren?
Look, you never know who's going to end up. I mean, there's a lot of talk of who's going to be the first tight end taken in this class. Is it going to be Colston Loveland, or is it going to be Tyler Warren? And obviously, we're not going to see Loveland do anything, but he should, with the shoulder or whatever issue, he should be ready to go by the time I think the season rolls around with him. And if a guy like Warren, depending on what other team needs are and how the board falls and all like that, if Warren was sitting there at 21, it sure would be tough to bypass that. I'll tell you that. He's as clean as a prospect as you would want when it comes to a tight end class.
Yeah, so I think Pittsburgh doing some due diligence here in a what-if scenario if he did fall. I think it's also important to get to know the top guys in each class, so when you evaluate everyone below that, you kind of have an understanding of, okay, what is the gold standard for the position this year? And you kind of be able to have a good base to work off for the rest of the prospects at tight end. Pittsburgh could add a tight end, assuming that Michael Pruitt does not return and knowing that Connor Hayward not really that true tight end for this offense.
What do you think about the overall formal visit list when it comes to the defensive backs?
Let me pull it up here, and we have the tracker on site for everyone. We're updating. I have it sorted, and we're getting pretty close to knowing. We're already well more than half of the formal interviews that have been confirmed by our team or by other outlets. So for defensive back, what we have so far, Barron from Texas, Benjamin Morrison, Notre Dame, Will Johnson from Michigan at safety, Jalen Reed, and Xavier Watts. Thought there might be a little more safety action there. Could that potentially signal Pittsburgh using a free agent signing for a backup safety? I think there's a real need there. At corner, it's the top names, Barron, Morrison, Johnson, all potential first-round guys.
Boy, that Barron knocked it out of the park with his interview, didn't he?
Yeah, is that the consensus on him and his media session? Okay, I just saw the comments. I didn't actually get to listen to it word for word, but so it sounds like he had a
Yeah, it sounds like he was a very knowledgeable, very kind of position flexible kind of guy, can move all over. Just really seemed to impress during his media podium interview.
nice. And there's been some mock drafts that have included Barron to Pittsburgh. Benjamin Morrison has the big medical concerns on the hip injury. So I think he was late to the podium because I'm guessing he was being poked and prodded by teams as they gather medical information. We'll see if he's a medical recheck guy. And Will Johnson is still viewed as the top corner in this class, but putting Travis Hunter aside, depending on how you view him, receiver versus cornerback, but probably not a guy that'll be there at 21.
All right.
Anything else? Any other DBs? Just quickly, you want to check out today, Dave? I think it's a solid cornerback class, not the best ever, but there's some names I want to check out here.
Yeah, I just wonder who's going to run because isn't Thomas from Florida State not running?
Is he not running? Is that what he had said?
I thought I saw something on that. Maybe I'm wrong, but you get hyped up to see some of these guys run, and they end up not running.
Yeah, Azarie Thomas. That's a guy I thought that would have a good combine workout. I have not seen if he's running or not, so I'll defer to you. We'll be disappointed if he doesn't. Hopefully, he can at least do some of the jumping or on-field drills. We'll have to see. I think what Denzel Burke runs. He had up and down 2024 season. I think Maxwell Harrison will have a really good workout. He's athletic, a great zone corner. I could certainly see the fit in Pittsburgh. He plays big. He's a ball hawk. Had a shoulder injury this past year, but I think he's a willing tackler. Tommy Hill from Nebraska, I think will have a good workout, assuming that foot injury that really derailed his 2024 has healed up. I know Travis Hunter's not going to work out here. Anybody else to kind of go down through the list of names? Darian Porter from Iowa State was on my list. He's going to run a fast 40. How will he look? Changing directions. Will there be some stiffness for his tall, longer frame? And Upton Stout's got a real chip on his shoulder. Just kind of, everyone doubts me mentality. Going to be nickel at the NFL level, but we'll see what kind of 40 time he runs. The speed didn't look great to me on tape. A short strider, obviously being a pretty small guy at a listed 5'8", a $178, but plays big and pretty loyal guy that could have gone to Michigan and replaced Mike Sanders still, but decided to stay at Western Kentucky and help out the Hilltoppers.
All right. Interested to see Kobe Bryant out of Kansas go through the paces. I think he's measured in now at 6 foot even, 180 pounds.
Okay, nice. So that's a little bit taller than what he was listed and a little bit bigger as well. And so that's important for a guy like him.
Right.
All right, Dave. And then safety. Yeah, to mention the safeties here, it's an okay class. The Penn State guys, I don't know if Winston's going to work out coming off the injury, but Jalen Reed is there. Let's see who else. I really like Malachi Moore from Alabama. I think his testing will be important in this process. Can he touch in the 4.4s? High 4.4s would be great for him. Anybody else at safety you're looking at?
Oh, the Shrine Bowl kid. Hold on, let me switch back to my sheet here real quick. Sebastian Castro.
Yeah, it's a guy with some versatility. He can kind of wear some hats. And so what do you think he'll run? Do you think if he does work out, will it be a decent workout, good workout? What is your expectation, if any?
Yeah, I don't have a good sense of his time speed just yet, but let's see, 5'11", 202. What are those guys? What's a good time normally for the safety group?
You get in the 4.4s, you're probably sitting pretty.
Let me see if I've got last year's. I don't have last year's up here, but I think he'll test pretty. He's a heavy hitter. I tell you what, he's a fearless guy. That's the thing that struck me the most coming out. I think the Shrine Bowl week.
Want to check out Craig Woodson from Cal, who I've talked about. I think he'll run just okay. He should jump well. He was a good leaper in high school, but he's got good tape versatility. And I mentioned that Gerald Alexander connection being recruited and coached by him in 2019. Let's see what Xavier Watts does, if anything, out of Notre Dame. There's the South Carolina kid, kind of viewed as a top safety, hybrid, bigger type. So we'll see what he runs as well.
All right, we should have plenty to talk about on the Monday show when it comes to these position groups. What do you think about the formals with some quarterbacks here coming in?
Sure, there's been a couple of names on that list, and I'll scroll up and read them off what we know right now. Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart from Texas and Ole Miss, respectively, have had formal conversations with and meetings with Pittsburgh. Ewers talked about having a good meeting with the Steelers. He had 7 formal interviews. Pittsburgh, one of only 2 teams that did not put him on the whiteboard. Pittsburgh, very famously, don't think they really do that kind of whiteboard work at the combine. They really want to get to know the person. Ewers was talking about Tomlin discussing his GPA and his major, and that is a very Tomlin thing where it's very focused on the old hearts and smarts and getting to know who the person is beyond just their football acumen.
Does it feel like this team's going to draft a quarterback at some point?
I think we need to get more clarity on the quarterback situation in general first for a team that, does not have only Skylar Thompson under contract right now. I've mentioned day 2, I think is a possibility. It wouldn't be a surprise to see this team try to stockpile and give themselves some options. So, I think it's still very much in the realm of possibility.
Are you surprised about how many formals are coming in from this group?
From the quarterback group?
Mm-hmm.
We only have the 2. I don't know. Some of these quarterbacks get swarmed so much. I think it's harder to get some questions in. I don't know if anyone was able to ask Will Howard from Ohio State if he has spoken with the Steelers. So that one might just be a little bit harder because I know obviously all the media flocks towards the quarterbacks.
All right. Anything else combine related before we go down another rabbit hole real quick?
Yeah, let me ask you just quickly for the running back. We have a ton of formal interviews from here. Ashton Genty, Ollie Gordon. I should mention the college as well. Let me restart. Ashton Genty from Boise State, Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State, Jordan James from Oregon, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, DJ Giddens from Kansas State, both Ohio State running backs Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. And your guy, Jaden Blue from Texas, Marion Hampton, also spoke with the team. He really did not give clear indication if it was formal or informal. Pittsburgh meeting informally with a couple of running backs as well. So is this to be taken as goodbye, Najee Harris?
Feels like that. More than anything, it feels like this team's going to draft a running back.
Which I presume would mean goodbye, Najee Harris. Right?
Yeah. As I've stated, I know Jerry Dulac had to report that they're talking with the reps of Najee at the combine and all like that. I still would be surprised they re-signed Najee.
Yeah, I should note that they talked with Harris's agent, which really shouldn't be a shock. They're all there, and it's not like this isn't such a no-brainer decision to not sign Najee Harris that you would snub his agent and not have a conversation with him. I think you want to keep lines of communication open. It's also good just to have good relationships with agents across the board. You want to piss off a guy who might represent a future client or other current client, and you want to have just good dialogue. And it's also just, I think, a respect thing too, to talk to agents for a guy that you drafted in the first round, to make sure you're clear on where things stand. So that report, some people freaked out. Oh my God, they're talking to Najee's agent. I think it's pretty commonplace for GMs to speak with agents. Not even a guarantee it was about Najee. For all we know, it was about some other prospect or other client or something like that. So I take these things with an appropriate grain of salt.
Okay.
All right, what rabbit hole are we going down now?
What'd you think about Dulac saying that Troy Fautano could have something about Fautano to guard had Dan Moore played better this year? In other words, their future plans may have included Fautano moving to guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think what was the exact language of Dulac's reporting that they viewed that he could have played guard. I don't know what scenario that would have happened. Obviously, Pittsburgh was very adamant he was a right tackle and he was going to start and play had he not been set back and ultimately his season ended by injuries. I don't know. My viewpoint of that was when you have a first-round guy you're that high on, I think Pittsburgh thought he could have played anything, could have been a tackle, could have kicked inside to guard, had a little bit of experience there in Washington. To me, that sounded more reflective of the team just really being high on his overall talent and believing he could do anything that you asked him to do, more so than a specific intent to play him at guard.
All right.
Is that kind of your viewpoint? Or?
Yeah. He's a guy that, as I said, I could see if it ever came to it down in the future moving to guard. It's kind of funny that we just talked about that the other day.
Yeah, it is. It's funny timing there. Also, some reporting coming in. The Steelers have checked in on 49ers receiver Deebo Samuel, but it's really heating up apparently with the Commanders and Houston Texans, according to Jordan Schultz. And so we'll kind of go full circle here on the podcast, starting off about talking about Jordan Schultz and all the Starbucks related stuff, and then end it with Schultz reporting the Commanders and Texans are in hot pursuit of Deebo Samuel. Adam Schefter this morning saying that Samuel's market is stronger than expected. Pittsburgh in the mix, but seemingly maybe a la Matthew Stafford in third place right now.
I mean, how shocked would you be if both Deebo and Ayuk are out?
Well, Ayuk's a whole nother situation there, and you can probably speak to the contract better than I can. John Lynch said the team is listening to everything. I can't see both receivers being dealt. I'm pretty confident Deebo is going to be traded. I think Ayuk stays.
I do as well too. I just and I mean, you're going to answer the phone, but they just signed. I mean, it wouldn't make a lot of sense with Ayuk. You sign him to that big deal that you had, pay him all that cash to get just so few games out of him, and then turn around and deal him. Especially when it already sounds like Deebo Samuel's out the door and all as well too. I'm not. And look, we had enough of that damn Ayuk
Yeah.
Steelers stuff last year. I'll be so glad when a lot of this stuff is put to bed, especially like Steelers and maybe a free agent wide receiver here or of some sort, or trade for one not named Ayuk here in the coming weeks, so we could just stop talking about Ayuk. I'll be absolutely shocked if the 49ers even deal Ayuk.
Right. I don't expect it. I think Samuel's basically good as gone, and I do not need to go through another heaping summer of Brandon Ayuk rumors. They did, extend Juwan Jennings. They did resign, or they did draft Ricky Pearsall, so they have some receiver talent, but I don't think both guys are going to go.
I don't either.
All right, Dave, I want to close out today's show with a couple of reader emails.
All right, let's see if we can fly through a couple here real quick, because we got some measurements coming in on some of these groups we got to get.
And just a quick note, apparently there will be no offseason hard knocks for the NFL this year. Surprisingly, no team jumping at the chance to do so after the Giants were pretty embarrassed, but the NFL will essentially be going to North Carolina for Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels and have an offseason documentary and following Belichick's first year in college, which I think will be pretty interesting.
All right, Randy from North Carolina, about Kyle Williams. I feel strongly the Steelers should draft wide receiver Kyle Williams from Washington State. Good route runner with room to grow and creates a lot of yards after the catch. What round should he be targeted at? I have not even watched Kyle Williams from Washington State yet.
And he was at the All-Star game. Somebody had given him a Deontay Johnson comparison. I think Williams is maybe a bit bigger. I will look at where Mock Draft Database currently has Williams projected late round, 7th round projection, but these things can obviously change here. And one recent mock draft from PFF put him in the 4th round. So could be a maybe late day 2, day 3 kind of a guy. We have a report up on Kyle Williams, though. People want to check it out.
All right, Ben writes in, we all know Omar is the con artist. He should tell George Pickens if he acts up in training camp or causes too much drama, he will trade him to the Browns and his career will be over. Maybe that's what he told Najee and Freiermuth, and that's why they showed up. LOL. Only joking, but he needs to be on our team if we want to compete. Yeah, look, I understand kind of the joking around there and all like that. But look, I mean, you're a better team if you have George Pickens in 2025 than if you don't, especially when it comes on the field. It's the other stuff that comes along with it that most worries you when it comes to George Pickens. And I think in so many words, that's what Ben's trying to say.
Yeah, I get the overall sentiment, but I don't think that's going to be the message sent to George Pickens.
Let's see. Brett's got another long one in here. He says, I think this team should double dip at D-line, but I also believe they should double dip at running back as well, too. Oh, Lord, this team double dips at running back in the draft. Alex, you're going to have to call and check on me. He says, I think we saw this year that the current running back room was weaker than perhaps we thought going into this year, and currently you only have Warren likely to be on the roster week 1. They currently have no one under contract for 2026. Now, you asked on the podcast what kind of back should they get, and Dave answered yes. Now, as I understand, that is considered to be a historic running back class, but because of depth, I don't think there are any transcendent talents, but there is essentially no real drop off as you have more than 30 draftable backs. He says, in his opinion, there's a value in drafting both a workhorse back and a home run back. Even if you sign a veteran for depth and tender Warren, there's plenty of room for 2 backs going into training camp, and you could easily carry 4 backs next year. If you're cutting Connor Hayward, meeting with the Bobs to discuss what exactly you do in the Smith offense, especially if they're returning kicks, blah, blah, blah. I know they have other needs, but in my opinion, he says there is likely to be a lot more day 3 value at this position, especially late day 3. And long story short, he's saying he would like to see this team draft 2 running backs.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a need. I think you draft one solid name in that, like I keep mentioning, second to fourth round range. Add undrafted free agent, maybe you sign some sort of veteran. I don't really see the urgency to draft 2 running backs, assuming that you tender and bring back Jalen Warren.
All right, in the end here, he says, my ideal draft would be to at least draft 2 defensive linemen, which would be 1 DN and 1 true nose tackle. He says, and 2 running backs. Day 3 one. After that, he really doesn't care what else.
Well, you only have so many picks this year. They don't have a ton of picks, not going to get comp picks, and so it's hard to double dip at 2 different positions. And I always talk about, I think double dips dictated more by value later in the draft than it is by a clear intent to go into a draft and double dip at a particular position.
All right, one more from Jonathan Emmerman. Hello, David Knox. I like Derrick Harmon and Jamari Caldwell, both as individual prospects. I wonder if doubling up on them could be something the Steelers consider. Look at Jared Verse and Braden Fisk from Florida State to Los Angeles, he says. Obviously, they were both solid prospects, but I love that LA took them both. If 2 guys have success together and are great prospects, why not team them up together again in the pros, he asks. They already know so much about each other and can pick up where they left off. He says the Steelers should double dip in the defensive line. Why not these Oregon bros?
A lot of double dipping. People really intrigued by that. Yeah, I mentioned Caldwell, a good workout.
Remember, I was the one early on that said they should double dip.
Yeah, there's certainly value and validity to that. On any 2 particular names, they get the Fisk verse comparison. So not dismissing the idea. I don't think it's going to be necessarily like back to back rounds. I think the way that
Right.
Fisk and Verse were, I don't know if Caldwell is going to be a second round kind of a guy, but I mean, I get the overall belief.
Mm-hmm. Derrick Harmon's going to be on this team's list. You can count on that. All right, I think we got through most of them here, and I know we got to get to logging some measurements here and get after it for before the combine drills start and all like that. Anything else you'd like to add that maybe we forgot? Any late news coming in?
Yeah, there is one thing from Tony Pauline, just giving some general information on Pittsburgh, that Pittsburgh's not impressed by the top quarterbacks in this year's class. He says they've been telling people that. I'm not sure if Pittsburgh's telling people that, but okay. Still a belief that some in the building would like Justin Fields to resign, but no real concrete information on if Fields will resign. Says the belief is from people at the combine, Pittsburgh will draft a lineman in the first round, either an offensive or defensive lineman. So interesting note there for the offensive side of things. And then Preston Smith, released by Pittsburgh, has gotten a lot of buzz at Indy. The Buffalo Bills looking at him, but it sounds like Preston Smith will have some suitors once free agency begins.
All right, I believe all the reports on Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have been all over the board. The Steelers are leaning towards both of them.
That's what it
and
really seems.
not leaning towards both of them.
Right.
I guess it depends on who gives the latest media interview when it comes to some of these talking heads here. So we just pass along the word. I mean, my gut feeling, I think we've established that is the gut feeling is that it'll be Justin Fields, but you can't until, like Omar said, until one of these guys are under contract, they're not under contract. So we're just going to have to continue to run through all the mess of reporting that's going to take place at the quarterback position between now and the start of the new league year. And I will be so glad when all of it's behind us. So we're no longer talking about Russell Wilson or Justin Fields or Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold or Who else?
Every other name, every other
Yeah.
conceivable option, Kirk Cousins, etc.
All
So,
right.
yeah, ready for all that to be put to bed, and hopefully sooner than later.
All right, Alex, we got a full day ahead of work ahead of us here. So we will be back on Monday. I don't know. Might we do something Sunday or something? I don't know. We'll just have to play it by ear with all these groups running and all like that, whether or not we can fit in another podcast to talk about combine stuff. So until the meantime, as we get all that figured out, make sure you follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Make sure you follow our three guys in Indianapolis, Ross McCorkle, Joe Clark, Jonathan Hightritter, for the latest updates coming out of Indy, especially when it comes to the meetings. We have a tracker. We got a couple of trackers. We got the combine meeting tracker, and we also have the combine results tracker up on SteelersDepot.com. We invite you to check out as well too. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. If you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. And if you want to send an email, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Good work today, Alex, and we'll talk on the next edition of this show when we get to it. So, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.